Oh, and welcome to week 14 of English 1301 online. This week we are going over the differences between academic sources and popular media sources, and we have the teamwork project that will be counting as attendance for this week. So let's get started. Down here under the argument essay, all the way down at the bottom, I have a scholarly sources versus popular media sources and what you need to know about them. And the reason we are talking about it this week is because for your final argument paper, your researched argument paper, you will need to use at least one academic scholarly source, as well as reference one of the summary articles that we looked at under social media. So, how do we know what a scholarly academic source is as opposed to the popular media source? Well, an easy way to give you an idea is the summary, the articles that you summarize that you need to reference at least one of. Those would be considered popular media sources. They came from sources that you can readily get to online, sources that are usually free to look at, or there's a lot of ads on them. And those would be popular media. Or, you might purchase them, say, at a newsstand if it was in a newspaper or in a magazine. Scholarly academic sources are the kinds that you find at the library in what's called the database of journals or books or other forms of information, but they've been peer reviewed and other things. So if we take a look at my list here that I made, so scholarly sources are for research and for evidence. In other words, they make you a better writer because they give you credibility because you're using them for topic. So if you look, research and evidence, they're written by experts, professors, researchers, scientists. They're reviewed by other experts, meaning they're peer reviewed. Somebody else goes over them and makes sure the information is correct. And they're published in what was called the academic journals or databases. And these are databases and journals that most average people don't have access to. Reason that we have access to it is because it is a school and you are students and you're learning about these things. And it's important that you learn about the most current topics within whatever subject it is. And just about every career path has a journal related to it. So, for example, there's the nursing journals, there's the medical journals, there's automotive journals, there's journals for professionals going into um, operations and plant operations and such. There's also English journals like JSTOR that are for mostly English students and teachers. And all of these journals are produced and published by professionals to help share information within that career path or that occupation. So that's why they exist, and that's why they're peer reviewed to make sure that they are giving correct information. Usually, an academic source will include an abstract, which is the summary at the beginning of it. It'll have citations and references. There'll be data, studies. There might even be some charts related to it, and it's usually very in-depth, very elevated analysis. The tone and the style is formal, objective, and detailed because it is giving real information to people who might be using it professionally. Some of the examples are of journal articles like JSTOR. You can also find them at Google Scholar, academic books, research studies, and you use these, like I said, to support your argument with strong, credible evidence, giving you credibility as a writer. So an example of a scholarly article is this, in that this is a scholarly article. It's called, the title is Conformity, Definitions, Types, and Evolutionary Grounding. It is actually in a journal. It's been published in a journal. It's the 15th article in that journal. And as you can see, it's quite long, several pages, in fact. And if you take a look, you can see the different citations that are in it. It's very dense, and if you were to read this, it would take you a while to sit down and actually read through it. But I was trying to get to the end to show you. Here we go. The references page. So here, all of those citations in the article relate back to these references back here. And this is all the information that the writer used to create this article about conformity. It's actually kind of an interesting article. But this would be an example of a scholarly source. Could you use something like this? Absolutely. And you would find them in the database of journals or on Google Scholar. Not Google, not just normal Google, but Google Scholar. That would be where you would get database journals. You can find them in the San Jacinto Library at the library database there. You can also contact the librarians, and they will be happy to help you find journals or articles to help with your paper. You can also probably use the database of journals at your school if you have one, if you are a dual credit student. Your librarian could help you with that as well. Now, popular media sources, this is general information. These are the sorts of things and the sorts of articles that you can pull up just by anybody can go to Google and pull them up. Conversely, you could go to the grocery store or Walmart or a corner store and buy the magazine that the article or the newspaper that the article appears in. Usually, popular media sources are written by journalists or general writers. They are not peer reviewed. In other words, nobody really goes over them to make sure that the information in there is correct. The editor will probably take a look at it to make sure that it is all grammatically correct and everything's spelled correctly, and that it makes sense. But they may or may not go over the actual information that's presented in the article. Just depends on what the topic is. And these are created for a general audience. They're not created for the specialized people that the scholarly articles are created for. They're created for everyday people who just want a little bit more information about something. They usually include summaries, opinions, trendy topics like celebrities or fashion, and they don't usually have citations. If they do, they're very sparse on the citations. The tone and the style is informal or persuasive, and it's really for entertainment. So it's going to be pretty casual, and it's much easier to read because of that. Some examples are news articles, whether they're in a newspaper, like a news website. They're usually written for a mass audience. Blogs, magazines, opinions, and editorial pieces, and things that you might hear on, say, the evening news if you were watching it on TV or something. There's no reason not to look at popular media sources. However, they are not the greatest for most research. They are good for background information, remaining current on things, and introducing specific topics or subjects. You can use them for that or to get an idea of what might be going on before you do a deep dive. You're going to find popular media sources all over the internet. This is what a popular media source looks like. Now, this one could be a little deceiving because this is called Psychology Today, and Psychology Today is actually an old magazine that has now gone online. But it is a popular media source. While it does have a doctor writing the article, it's an article about how cultures make people conform. And it's an interesting little article, but it has one citation, and that's from Wikipedia, which, as most good academics know, we do not cite Wikipedia in our essays. So please don't ever cite Wikipedia in your essay, although this one cited it. And again, because this is a popular media article, it's just kind of general information. So it's very short too. And it has no other citations other than Wikipedia, which kind of makes me question what kind of doctor this person is. But I'm sure he means well, and I'm sure that this article was not written for any serious reason other than to inform an audience about cultures and conformity. So that being said, know the difference. If it has ads on it, it's popular media. If it is in really elevated language and sort of dense, it's probably academic or scholarly. If you ever have a question as to whether or not something is academic or scholarly, you can always refer it to me, email it to me, and I will let you know for sure. Here's some more key differences that you can see. The author is usually an expert. For a scholarly source. For popular source, it's just a journalist or a writer. As we saw in that last case, the author was an expert, but did not write an expert level paper. He simply wrote an informative little short essay. It's reviewed by peers for the scholarly source. Usually popular source is not reviewed by peers for correct information. It's just reviewed for spelling, one would hope. The evidence that's given for scholarly sources is usually data with citations, and for popular sources, it's just usually general information, some quotable things, but a lot of opinion as well. The tone is formal with a scholarly source. It's informal with a popular source. And the purpose for a scholarly source is usually related to research. And with popular sources, it's to inform or entertain. So what's better for your research paper? Well, a peer-reviewed study on social media, a news article, or a news article on about teen phone use. Could you use either of them? You absolutely could for this paper, but the best one to use first and the one to make sure that you use the most would be the peer-reviewed study on social media and attention span. The news article would be awesome to kind of give some context, just like it says, or to introduce the topic. So bottom line, popular media sources are a starting point, but scholarly sources are what you need to use for evidence. And if it has citations, a data, and an expert author, it's probably a scholarly source. If it doesn't, or if it has ads, or if it's something you might just scroll by, it's probably popular. So hopefully that will help you with identifying those. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Email me. Should be working on our essays this week and our teamwork project at the end of the week. Have a great rest of your week.